Hi, everybody, and welcome back. You know that my dream job is to be Oprah, so this is like practice for me. We have a distinguished guest here with us. We have Mike DelGiacco. We call him familiarly White Mike because he's so cool. We have Black Mike too. Wayne, Mike is an entrepreneur, lots of different businesses and things he's into. Really smart guy, Island of St. Croix. Wayne, I was thinking about you this morning, Wayne, I'm Biggs, about the various roles we play because you've been everything here, SBDA, DLCA, EDA, what else?
That covers most of it.
But he is our esteemed executive director of the Economic Development Authority. I've worked for him for years. Next thing we have Daryl Wade, who is extraordinary in ViNGN, doing some incredible things with technology on behalf of the Virgin Islands government and the President of the United States, and of course our very own Mike Carty. So, you know, we'll jump right into it. Technology is really my friend. I mean, I want to be known as the first digital governor if ever there's a legacy. What are some of the ways that you guys are seeing that technology is changing the way we do business and giving us opportunities into the national or global scale? I'll start with you, Mike.
Thanks, Governor. You know, I think, you know, especially with the pandemic, I've really found, I know it, you know, it's a bit of an obvious answer in that we all think, hey, you know, now Zoom is something we're very familiar with. But, you know, I have really seen how comfortable, how productive, you know, the Zoom technology, the Zoom world has become. You know, it takes a bit for technology to really, you know, Amazon, Google, I mean, these are late 90s companies, right? That, you know, you mentioned the adoption curve, really got, you know, really embedded, you know, not until 10 years past that. So it does take a bit, and I feel like the pandemic really did make everyone more comfortable. And, you know, in the Virgin Islands, we are a very appealing remote work location. So, and at the same time, with not a huge market, right? So, you know, it allows us to, you know, the talent in the Virgin Islands to, you know, really be a part of the global economy. And I think business is here to, you know, to tap a national market, which is helpful.
And I want to make sure that people are understanding what he said, a remote work market. That's so important now. If you can work from anywhere, why not work from here? The temperature is good every day of the year. You know, either it's going to rain or it's not going to rain. And if it's going to rain, it's going to be good in a couple of minutes. So improving our technology gives us an advantage, he's saying, in people coming here to work other places remotely. Anybody else got any thoughts on the subject?
Yeah, first of all, I'll concur with Mike in reference to Zoom. We're in the business of trying to attract investment here into the territory, and Zoom allows us to meet with people face-to-face that would normally have to fly in. So it's a lot quicker. We can have that personal one-on-one real quickly, but also just using technologies in general. I mean, for us, internally using DocuSign, we can now do a certificate and we can send it to wherever that person is at. They DocuSign it, it comes right back. We're using ShareFile. I mean, there's a variety of different technologies that just brings the world so much closer together, and we're able to be more efficient and more effective as a result.
That is certainly true. Any other thoughts?
Go ahead. Thanks, Mike. Well, I think that, you know, building on a bit of what the previous two panelists said, I try to break down technology really in, you know, increasing speed and efficiency fundamentally are tied to all of these industries. So we do talk about Zoom, we talk about, you know, the saving cost of less flights between islands, you know, here locally. But you know, I'm really intrigued, especially how it has been influencing, you know, the health sector, our ability to have access to doctors and get information, especially heart disease type of issues, these things that are really time sensitive. You know, we are able to make these type of moves, you know, in advance over before. Another huge thing too, I think that some people who fear technology and the growth of it, I think that when they see that it might take their jobs, the view that I think most people should have is see that it frees up your time to do more effective type of tasks that still require a person. AI has been great. You know, it makes your pictures probably prettier than they should be in your phone, you know, in a split second.
Have you seen that? I mean, oh my God. When you meet people on Facebook and you meet them in a real person, you're like, yep.
Yeah, you know.
You're not the person that I met online. I think I like your avatar better. Mike?
Yeah, so I think everybody definitely, I share the same sentiments as everybody here, right? And work is no longer someplace you go, it's something that you do. And that remote work will be a key.
Say that again. Say it again.
Work is no longer someplace you go, it's something that you do. And it's something that you can do from anywhere.
Right.
So by doing that from anywhere, yes, it is attractive for folks to come here and work here for anywhere else, but we also have to empower our people to remain here and then work
Absolutely.
everywhere else. Because the biggest thing that we have is our intellectual property, our human capital.
Right.
I mean, we don't make a lot of things here, so if we upskill our folks to then be qualified enough to work remotely for anywhere else in the world, that payment, all that money coming back right here,
Right.
and they're working from paradise. So
Right.
we have to look at it from both directions.
I swear this guy reads my notes in the night. This guy's like spot on all the time. And you said something, Mike, that we're going to talk about a little bit later, but the fact that AI, people looked at it as something that's going to replace them, or technology is going to replace you. I remember I said history repeats itself. People thought computers would replace people. What it actually did is make more work, because now everything moves faster. So ordinarily, it would take you 3 days to get a letter written, get it mailed, get it to the other person. That happens now. People don't even use email anymore. It's just IM, right? You instant message everybody. But do you think, and this frustrates me, as a territory, we are changing policy, not only on politicians, because I know people like to blame politicians, but are we changing policy everywhere to take advantage of this? I'll give you an example. Like, we had a piece of legislation that demanded that every taxi driver had to take some kind of electronic payment. Are we doing those types of things to make sure that we are ready for, well, the economic boom is here, but are we changing policy, or do you see that? Anybody?
Well, I don't think we keep in pace or we taking advantage of how quickly we can change policy compared to places on the mainland. Because look at this. We want to be competitive from the tech space, and we say we have the fastest speeds, XYZ, right? But that's not our competitive advantage. Our competitive advantage is because we're small. We could change policy quickly to then attract bigger companies here. You know, we could even have different data policies for safe harbor, you know, different things as far as, look, if your data is located here, these are the steps that somebody would have to go through to say, subpoena it, bring it, etc. And that makes it a lot more attractive for folks to warehouse data here. And those are things that we can do to actually accelerate the growth of our tech industry, because we ain't gonna outpace the States, like, because we getting our bandwidth from there. We have to be more creative with what rules and compliance we put in place to make it attractive to be here to then connect to the rest of the world.
I think we're related to something. Because I always say that we have a full-time legislature. We have, you know, most places they have mayors and stuff. We only have one governor. And we have these agencies that are very nimble, but we don't act nimble. We need to be able to change the policy. It's not about being the fastest, he's saying. It's about being the one that's able to change the quickest, because when it's changing on a large scale, it's much difficult.
Yeah, I don't know if it's only policy. I mean, I think we have to change the paradigm as to how we look at things. Your example in reference to taxi drivers taking electronic payment is a great example. And for me, a personal example that happened just last week is I went into Whole Foods in the mainland, and I left my wallet in the car, and I was able to pay with my watch, with Apple Pay, instead of going back up to the parking lot, you know, getting my wallet and coming back down. So I think we have to embrace that type of thing where technology is definitely assisting and making things more efficient.
You know, conversely, you know, in places now, there are a lot of places, especially mass places like stadiums and stuff, that don't take cash, period. If you don't have any way of electronic paying, you basically can't go anywhere. Any other thoughts on?
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, Mr.
Yeah, I'm saying, I mean, we're seeing now even with our airline industries here, you can't pay for an airline ticket at, you know, Seaborn or Fly the Wheel or whatever. You have to use electronic. Wow. You can't pay cash. So we're seeing that slowly, you know, come to fruition here in the territory. And again, I think it's just the embracement of technology.
I think back to the question about where we're at with the policy is for years I've studied smart cities across actually the globe, but primarily in the United States. And when I speak to the cities that have been successful, to San Francisco, there's some places in Colorado or whatnot, the common thread that I've heard from the leaders, either their governors or their CIOs in those areas, has been that the policy is first, for the adoption of, the government doing certain things, and especially for like healthcare initiatives and things of that nature. I think that here, knowing Mike and a few other people who I know are really smart who work within government and in private industry, we have these conversations about things that we implement, but they kind of stay within our walls, because it's not required for the next agency to take the best practices. So I definitely do feel that that's something that we as a whole government, could tighten up so that we start taking that walk together and standardize.
Absolutely. I think a lot of that is everybody want to be a hero in their own genre, right? They want to do their own thing and invent their own thing and get a credit for it. But really, it is about putting it together. One of the interesting things, last time I was asking some questions, people were getting like really that deer-eyed stare, like, I don't know what you're talking about, Governor. But I'm going to talk about blockchain for a second. Now, people know blockchain is cryptocurrency, but blockchain is an amazing tool for funding, for trading. Do you see any emergence of that in our territory now? And if we're not looking at blockchain and in the Internet of Things, can we be successful?
Well, blockchain is definitely a protocol on the back end that could support many different things. Right. Crypto is just kind of what it's been tied to for right now. But when you look further down into the future, blockchain is things that can be used for even digital voting, health records. I mean, you name it. Anything that decentralizes and transfers or shares data, blockchain can securely be used to do that. So instead of having it one central place, the blockchain ledger can be used for many things to distribute it across the board. We just got to be creative enough to find those applications and not necessarily be afraid to approach it first. Like you have right now the digital health.
Say that about again. Not be afraid to what?
Approach it first, do it first.
Or second or third or fourth or fifth.
Well,
you don't have to be 169th to approach.
Correct, because then the value is gone. The value of all of that, of doing it early, is now gone. You take it from being lucrative to now being basic. Right? So if we pioneer, like you were saying earlier, what we will do now is attract folks here to then say, you know what, they have attractive policies for us to experiment with this. They have attractive policies for us to solve these problems using X. And that way now we become on the forefront of it. Not to say we're going to get perfect, but at least we out ahead in the lead to actually refine it and get it right.
Nice.
You mentioned both Daryl and Mike on the healthcare industry. Blockchain on medical records, we've seen is a big one. And even to your prior question on policy, I think healthcare is really an industry we can really focus on here. Obviously, the demos are great globally for here, for the States. But you're talking about the policy side. We did pass a great telehealth policy, and we just didn't really. There was a chance I think we could have marketed it that better. That this is out there. We made an investment in actually in a telehealth platform that is using blockchain for medical records, but it's in St. Kitts, and they have a little bit stronger policy there to do the telehealth and do it throughout the Caribbean. So I think it's certainly mirroring. Both the blockchain technology and also really pushing on policy can certainly help.
One of the things that I always feel as governor is that I'm always chasing my tails. As soon as we've gotten so many roads paved, and you look and you see more roads falling apart. In internet bandwidth, I feel the same way. It's like I'm feeling good, like, oh, finally we're going to get 100 gig to the house, and people are talking about 3 gigs to the house now. Can we catch up?
Well, I would say we have to decide what race we're running. What race are we really running? So if somebody has 3 gigs to the home, that doesn't mean that they're going to code an application or solve a problem that much faster. They may be able to watch movies on YouTube and learn, but it doesn't restrict them from being creative. So I don't think that should be the race that we're running. We need to run the race of being creative, and the problems that we do have, bring them to the forefront here. Allow our people to solve them here first instead of looking elsewhere. Right. We might not get it right the first time, but let us try again. You know, and at that point, that's when the faster speeds may be coming into play, because if we've solved it, then we could distribute it elsewhere. So we got to decide what race we're running.
Yeah, I think economies of scale also play a big part in reference to how do we branch out internet bandwidth into the community. I mean, if you live in the mainland and you got a 20-story building that houses 100 apartments, it's easy to run that fiber in, but because we're all in separate homes, it's a little more difficult. So I think we're always going to be, you know, slightly behind, but I agree with Mike. I mean, I think we just need to be creative in how we move policy forward. And more bandwidth doesn't necessarily mean you're more efficient or you're more effective. It just means you got more bandwidth depending what you're doing with it.
You know, you look like you got something to say. Don't be shy.
Your spot.
Yeah, no, I
Your
definitely,
area of expertise.
They're saying the right thing for sure. I think that in terms of, like, you know, as you mentioned something, first time I heard something like that, like in terms of the race that we're running, where we try to make sure that we're promoting, you know, at least from ViNGN, is that bandwidth is not your limitation. So we still need to expand and we still need to grow, but it should not be the hindrance for a business to thrive here. And that's been one of our major goals, you know, and for schools to run and whatnot. Yeah, you might not need 3 gigs. Very few people need 3 gigs and can properly use it. But if people can't, if young kids can't upload videos to become their own social media, you know, star and build their own careers, those are the things that we want to make sure that we get addressed, because that should not be an issue with us with what's available here.
Yeah, and I would just say, I mean, yeah, to further on that, I mean, it allows our workforce to invest in themselves, right? I mean, you have fast speed, you can go. I mean, there's so much training that's available online in the States. I mean, you know, you get that. You know, what is your passion? You know, invest in yourself.
Say that part again. I'd like to hear them nuggets again. There are so much training online, and what? You missed one word. Free.
Exactly.
Yeah, what Daryl doesn't know, but of course we go out and we promote the territory as we try to attract businesses. And we do promote bandwidth availability, but what I think is also important is reliability.
Reliability.
You know, so we promote reliability also. So we often check with our partners at ViNGN to make sure that we're hitting those reliability levels so we can promote that.
And WAPA. You know, 15 years ago, I wrote a perspective for a vision for the Virgin Islands, and one of the things in there was that every child would have a device and bandwidth to do it. Today, every public school student has a computer. They have availability to bandwidth. We're doing, we're running fiber actually in public housing units, and as remote as Kramer's Park is, we have free bandwidth there too. Most parks and public places will have free 5 megabit bandwidth, courtesy of ViNGN and Daryl Wade there. But what else aren't we doing? I mean, good, people could go on YouTube and stuff, but what else are we missing that we're not doing for our young people that will give them that advantage in terms of leveraging the internet? What do you think we could do?
Well, I think they all leverage the internet in some capacity right now. I mean, but it is what is it that they're doing on the internet? Right now, it's kind of heavily on the entertainment side. But then even before we get into the youngsters, what about like their parents now? Because there's a lot of infrastructure that happens to do all the things that you just described. Running the fiber into the housing communities, running it to different parks. We have to be intentional about how we spend and who we spend with when these projects happen. Right. Because it's their parents that is going to do the blue-collar work to run that infrastructure. That's going to create an environment for that child to thrive in, to really be creative and not be worrying about, okay, well, this bill have to pay or that bill have to pay, and this is the type of stuff that they're hearing. They ain't gonna be creative because they're in survival mode. But if we invest properly and really get a lot of good blue-collar tech businesses healthy, then their kids are gonna be the one to be creative. So again, it goes back to deciding what race we run in and really approaching it from all verticals, not just I have fast internet.
Governor, you said something in your speech earlier also that as an employer that we look to. So I think we need to teach how to be responsible on the internet also, because we do go to Facebook page first thing that we look at when we're trying to hire somebody. And that tells a lot about the person. So I think we need to indicate to these individuals that you need to be responsible from that young age in reference to how you use the internet. We find that YouTube, we go to YouTube and we look for YouTube videos if you're on YouTube and stuff also. I mean, you know, YouTube full of fights all over, so we look at those sorts of things in regard to that also. So, I mean, I think because everybody pretty much has a camera on their phone now, we have to teach people how to be responsible when they're using the internet and what they're doing in public that's going to end up on the internet.
Wow, that is definitely something we do. What about training? Are there? I often thought people told me that I shouldn't say, but I say it anyway. All of us took foreign language in school. I had Spanish for 12 years. Can't speak a lick of it. Isn't it time we change from that approach? Because eventually you're going to be able to stick something in your ear and it'll translate any language. Mm-hmm. Isn't it time we start to demand that students learn IP protocols, cybersecurity, routing, and in school? Imagine if we had a generation of people that had 12 years of different type of computer skilling. What do you think about that?
It would change the place overnight. I mean, it's going to take time, but it would change the dynamic and the place overnight. In addition, though, once they learn those things, once they have those skills, we then have to be prepared to land them into the jobs here that they could then earn from those skills and not just be creating and cultivating and farming and exporting that talent to somewhere else, right?
Yeah, to add to that as well, I think that them getting an understanding of it is important, is to demystify like how things work, in your house and with technology. So if you have a wireless router, everybody should kind of understand why it doesn't work if you walk across the street or you walk behind a concrete building, or how it should get to the internet. You should understand these things. Even AI, which could be and blockchain, for example, could be very complex topics, but especially with ChatGPT and these things these days, you could type in, explain blockchain to me as if I was a 15-year-old. And so if you understand how these things work, this is one of my biggest lessons I learned going to college, is that I knew how to type, really well in high school or whatnot. When I went to college, I was a pretty good student, but didn't have that much chemistry background. When I got there, I was beaten up in chemistry, completely beaten up, but I made crazy money typing and burning CDs. That's how, And until I came here, this is the first time I worked for a company that I didn't own, is ViNGN. I've always been an entrepreneur. And so when I went there, at first, I'm getting beat in these chemistry classes, organic chemistry, man. And I think he's a chemical engineer, which is
former chemistry major.
Insane.
Pure respect for this, what I mean? But what it did for me is, certain things in the computer world were demystified to me. So when I got there and people were wondering why a scratch would make your CD skip, I knew that, what it took to like burn data into a CD. And so I started to be able to build a career, because these things, I was not starting out as an elementary, elementary in the mindset. If I was a chemistry engineer, I would probably still be in school trying to understand these things. So it's very important that all of these things, if you're hearing these words blockchain, you should be able to explain to your brother or sister and say, hey, this is roughly how blockchain works, because that's when you know how to avoid it from being used against you. You understand cybersecurity and things a bit more. So I'll just close with that. Yeah.
And if you don't know what ChatGPT is, you got to look it up, because when I discovered it, I was ready to fire my entire staff. I mean, this thing is incredible. You could say, listen, I want you to write a memo to Carlton Dow about cruise ships coming in too late in the night, and then write the press release for it, and in 2 seconds it writes it out better than you could ever write it. It's amazing. You got to check it out, ChatGPT. What do you think the impact of that is going to be in the Virgin Islands? We always slow to, it happens in the States, as they say, they sneeze, we catch the cold. But what do you think the impact of that is going to be?
I mean, I would hope it empowers folks to start their own small business. I think technology, AI, it can demystify things, just like, even accounting, how to set up my legal entity, all these things like that you can, that AI can help you do. I mean, there's an amazing amount of tasks that can be a hurdle in having your own business that are very automated right now and free, right, to your point. So, back to that point of kind of trade, and hustling on entrepreneuring, the best way to get ahead where there is in a place that doesn't have huge companies and huge employers, is to do it yourself, and to do it with a trade you're passionate about, and you don't need 10 people to do it. You need, maybe yourself, and just a few others, and in that way you're keeping your overhead small, and all those sales you get, most of it goes into your bank account. So it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's opportunities there also. The computers had spell check that helped quite a bit.
Yeah.
Then we had Grammarly.
Yeah.
Now we got ChatGPT. I know for me personally, it's going to help with some of the editing we do in the office. I mean, we're constantly, if we're sending stuff out, want to make sure it goes out right. So we're rereading, making sure verb to noun meets, make sure spelling is correct. So I think ChatGPT is going to have a huge influence. And I don't think it's going to be as scary because the millennial population is going up. They're growing and they're using these things. I think it's going to be making it a little more difficult for people in education and a couple other areas as to, is it my writing or is it ChatGPT writing? I mean, I'm not sure how you reference ChatGPT. If you do a paper, a variety of different things.
There's a way to check if you used it.
Written by ChatGPT.
Teachers can check it off.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of different things. So, but it's going to have a huge influence. Yeah.
But one thing, and I agree, and one thing that I do look forward to is what is coming next, because right now ChatGPT is what we've been introduced to on the normal everyday person level. But AI has been in place for decades. Right. Companies like Amazon, Google, Facebook, they've been using AI. What we're seeing now with ChatGPT, that's like throwing a thimble into the ocean. Right. That's a small snippet of what actually exists and what will be introduced. But what I'm encouraged to see is when AI moves towards being more personal. Imagine you have your own personal AI that then tracks your daily routines, your daily habits, etc. That's married to an AI that a Department of Labor has that can say, hey, look, based on your routines, based on your skill sets, based on your activity, you uniquely qualified for this job. Wow. And matching that together and automating that, I think that is the next frontier for us.
You don't think we're doing that already? I was telling somebody the other day that I never get negative stuff on my Facebook page. And I started to think about it, and I never like negative stuff. So Facebook runs algorithms that give you what you like.
Correct.
And then they run those algorithms against everybody your age. They keep sending me all kinds of stuff about weed rollers and stuff. I don't know, guess 55-year-old black men smoke weed. But what I'm saying is, if you're getting negative stuff, that means the algorithm is saying you like that. So you need to check yourself if you keep getting negative stuff in your Facebook. Little tidbits for you.
Correct.
Tells you about yourself. So aren't we already doing that?
It's slightly, and you are correct, but we're doing that in response to what we offer up and what we decide and what we click or like, etc. Imagine that portion of it goes away. I don't need to see what you click or like. You have on this Apple Watch. I know your routines. I know who you are around. I know your heart rate. I know all these things about you. So I don't need to see what you like.
That a good
I'm actually
thing?
seeing what you're doing, right? I'm seeing and reading your text messages. I'm seeing and reading what you're thinking. So I don't need you to like anything anymore. I could just decide.
How many people in here don't like that?
But
So I mean, more and more. Your movement, everything you do is predictable. Your Siri, whoever is in your house listening to you, is telling you. So you're saying that's going to escalate to a point where
exponentially, and that's what right now. When you talk about ChatGPT, like last year, we wouldn't have even been mentioning ChatGPT. It wasn't until November 2022 when that name came about. But here we are talking about it and embracing it and saying it's making our lives easier. But all that does is make us comfortable with the idea.
it lures us in to be
Exactly.
Big
So we
Brother
can
is watching.
volunteer willingly into participating. I mean, we've been participating, but we're just becoming more comfortable with the concept now.
Yeah, I saw a cartoon and it had the CIA testifying before Congress, telling them they don't need any more money because social media has made it so easy to track what people are doing in their lives. They tell us everything they're doing now. We don't need to spy on them anymore. Exactly. But what do you think is our opportunity as the Virgin Islands as we move forward? Like, we're not pioneers. Like casino gaming, it came 10 years too late. Even cannabis, 10 years too late. We always are on the precipice of the last thing that happened 10 years later. What do you think how do we change people's mindset about being the pioneers, being the ones that, go out there and get it first?
I think as Caribbean people, we've been kind of taught to be risk aversive. And I think sometimes we just got to step out.
Risk
the box.
averse. Y'all know what I mean, right? When I like risk now.
And so we just have to step out of the box sometime. And I see that again with the younger generation where they're taking more risk. They're being into entrepreneurship. You see them, they're not necessarily working for the government. We were told, my generation, you work for the government to secure, you got pension, you got insurance.
I'm glad
But
you
I
didn't
see-
include me in your generation.
Well,
You didn't say,
you only a couple of years behind, but we went to the same school, by the way, so we know each other a long time. So don't try to hide from that. But I think we're changing slowly as a community because the younger people are forcing us to change, and I think technology is what's forcing us to change because they're embracing technology and using technology from that age. All of us have young kids, and we see a 3-year-old pick up a cell phone and have no fear of doing stuff on a cell phone where we may be a little hesitant. So the next generation, we'll probably see a significant amount of change here in the territory.
I like that. That's a really unique perspective. I was listening to some people talk the other day, and they were saying, these young people, they don't know what they're doing. They don't spell LOL, LMK. They don't even know how to write a sentence. That was like 10 years ago, and now you see ChatGPT emerge. And those people were saying, I don't know how those young people are going to make it in the world. And I told them at the time, it's not how they going to make it, it's how you going to make it.
Correct.
Because the language is changing. Are you experiencing that? I mean, are you feeling like I'm done at TikTok. I can't learn any more social media. I just watch the funny videos. Can you see how that change is happening rapidly in the Virgin Islands? Can you see it?
Absolutely, you do see it, and it creates a few different dynamics. On the one point, like we were discussing, it does accelerate business, right? But on the other hand, it does disconnect us culturally to really understand and interact just like how we have been all the time. Now, when it comes to...
That's deep. Say it again. It disconnects us culturally because now we're getting a cultural medium from someplace else that we're
That's
totally
not our culture.
Right.
And we just offering it up, but what it provides is a different type of culture. Because, another point I'll make is when we talk about AI, our people have to be involved in programming, learning, and training this AI, because what we are seeing now is AI trained by other cultures, other people, and those things are coded with their biases. Right. So before you know it, we'll be using and participating in AI that's totally biased against us and we don't even know.
That is truly deep. I mean, because you don't think about it, and it has happened before. I am amazed how much of rap culture Virgin Islands kids have adopted over the last 30 years. But that's what we listen to now. Imagine when these devices are knowing everything you do, how they can... So you think we're going to have one morphed culture in the world?
Eventually, because then if you have one morphed culture, it's much more predictable, it's much more easy to manage, it's much more easy...
Manipulate?
Exactly. So we have to be careful of that. Our people have to participate, and our people have to see the changes coming and be right there in the forefront. We're small enough to make those types of changes, and we're small enough for those changes to affect us on a big level. But another thing as well, too, if we're going to move everything forward, like you was talking about, we lag behind 10 years, we will have to pick some gray area to accelerate with technology, right? So something that people may find controversial now, we will need to adapt with technology. And if you look at things like stem cells, like plant medicine, all these things are controversial, right? And tech is not going to just be tech for tech's sake. It has to be married with something. It has to solve some problem or accelerate some demand that you're creating. And we have to pair it with one of those gray areas to be the first. If somebody running from it now, we need to be running towards it, creating a policy, and then merging it with tech.
Genetically paired, I think we are.
There you go.
Last question. I always say, when we're talking about this, that the Virgin Islands suffers from not being able to message effectively. And we message effectively in a negative way. Like, I'm a politician, so the radio could be a positive and a negative, right? How do we use technology to message to people prosperity, seize the moment, take advantage of the things that are available today? Do you think that's an issue? Because I am totally dumbfounded by the amount of our young people that tell me they want to go someplace else. And every time I'm on a plane, I meet somebody who has just moved to the Virgin Islands.
I think podcasters can do it. I mean, if you're using technology, we have to continue to put positive messages out. Definitely YouTube videos. People are very visual now. So I think we need to show, as Mike says, culturally what we are like. We need to show the pretty pictures of the Virgin Islands, but also the business environment. And I think sometimes we can't shy away from our problems. We have to admit that we have certain problems, and this is what our resolutions are to correct that problem and move forward. But I think we have to continue to use those type of medias in reference to technology if we're going to message and message effectively.
Awesome. We've had a great time. We have a great panel, and join us tomorrow at 6 on. I want to thank these guys. These guys were really great. And I want to apologize to my best friend in Atlanta because she always mentioned it every time I do anything. Yes, it's all men again, but I didn't pick 4 men to be up here. They did. Have a great day, everybody.